Good morning and a very warm welcome to a day where industry leaders and innovators will share hugely relevant insights on the topic of cybersecurity, fraud and human error. The team here at Public Sector Executive has been busy behind the scenes preparing an event which promises to inspire education, innovation and collaboration within the community we're building. Whether you've been to one of our PSE365 virtual events before, or if you're new to the platform, we've taken the time to listen, building much more than just a series of singular disconnected events. We've created a platform which allows you access to a wealth of resources, on-demand content, as well as continuing to provide networking opportunities that can be accessed long after today's event is over. Part of the community we're building to extend the reach of knowledge and connections shared today. There are plenty of opportunities to network during the event too. You can connect with other delegates using our speed networking functionality, which I really do encourage you to do. We're also able to share with you the digital marketplace, providing valuable expertise that you and your teams can digest when your schedules allow. Without support, of course, from our partners, events like these simply wouldn't be possible. It's worth noting that all the content from today is CPD certified. For every hour of content you watch live, you'll earn 1 CPD point. To receive your certificate, please email the PSE team at marketing@cognitivepublishing.com. That's marketing@cognitivepublishing.com, and they'll sort it out. So there's a bit of background to explain what's on offer. Now let's move to the focus of today. The public sector knows all too well that the past 18 months have revealed unprecedented challenges for anyone working in cybersecurity. The global pandemic forced public sector organisations to work from home seemingly overnight, meaning many cybersecurity teams have had to adapt and ensure systems and data remain secure as remote working ensues. The latest Cybersecure Breaches survey findings suggest that remote collaboration increases the risk of organisations' data not always being shared securely, with almost 4 in 10 businesses and approximately a quarter of charities reporting cybersecurity attacks in the last 12 months. Well, from ransomware to human error, cybersecurity is at the top of the agenda for the UK government in the age of disruption. Today, we'll explore how the public sector can engage with its citizens and their data whilst keeping the data secure and the public confident in their abilities. We'll also look at how the public sector navigates the challenges of cybersecurity following the rise in cyber attacks subsequent to the pandemic. An added benefit of today's proceedings is some friendly competition to reward you for your hard work. Score points by engaging with the platform's different elements and potentially earn yourself a choice of reward come end of play. Our gamification tools will be active throughout the day with an up-to-date leaderboard tracking delegates' progress. So those who finish in first, second and third places respectively will have 250, 150 and £100 donated to either the Magic Breakfast charity or More Trees in their name and organisation. The Magic Breakfast charity can give a child a nutritious breakfast and a chance to succeed at school with every 34 pence donated. So a £100 donation means that nearly 300 children get a good start to their day. Or if you donate to More Trees, for every £1 donated, you guessed it, a tree is planted, helping our climate. And of course, you can only be in with a shout of winning by getting out there and engaging with all of the great content we have to share with you and connecting with your peers. Join a live session, there's 50 points earned. Make a connection with another delegate in the platform, that's 100 points. Ask a question in a session or engage with one of our exhibitors, another 50. You get the gist. And finally, as we get ready to welcome our first speaker of the day, feel free to share interesting things that you hear throughout the day across social media using the hashtag PSE365. That's hashtag PSE365. So let's kick off with our first keynote of the day, Perpetuating the Weakest Link, with Professor Stephen Furnell, FCIS, Professor of Cybersecurity at the University of Nottingham.
just this year, various articles and various studies talking about this aspect. And also to explain my slide title here, the quote about ordinary, unalert, uninterested, lax, ignorant, uncaring end users. This comes from a study conducted all the way back in 2002 by Information Security magazine. And this was one of the things that one of the respondents said was the problem that they were facing with their information security. It's called information security then, not cyber security, but it's essentially the same thing we're talking about. So now people are the weakest link in cybersecurity, apparently. So why is this, and where does this come from? And is it something we actually ought to be able to do about it? Well, one thing we can look at, we can see there are various breaches occurring. This from our UK Cybersecurity Breaches Survey this year. You can see a range of breaches being experienced across UK organisations, taken from a sample, as it says there, 654 businesses and 183 charities. You can see that between the businesses and the charities, the experience of these breaches or attacks is roughly in the same proportion for each category. What ought we to be doing then about trying to prevent these breaches? What are the steps we ought to be taking? Well, the National Cybersecurity Centre here in the UK usefully has 10 steps to cybersecurity. And this, up until May of this year, is what the 10 steps look like. They changed them in May of this year, but I'm using the older set for a reason that becomes apparent on the forthcoming slides, because we've got some survey data from the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey showing the extent to which this incarnation of the 10 steps was actually being followed in organisations. Now we can see across this range of steps a variety of different types of emphasis being given. So things through network security, malware prevention, secure configuration, managing privileges, all very much on the technology side of things. And then things like having a risk management regime, user education awareness, home and mobile working, which is around a policy, being things that are more policy and procedurally related. Now, these are basically things that you could argue all organisations ought to be giving them some consideration, because I didn't see anything on that previous slide that suggested no organisation's going to be facing that in general terms. But from the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey, we can see here the extent to which action has been taken across these steps. So at least half of the steps have been taken by at least half of the organisations, half of the businesses overall have taken action on 5 or more. But if we look at action having been taken across all 10 steps, it's a very low percentage. It gets bigger as you get through to larger organisations, but even there, only a quarter of large businesses have done all of the 10 steps. So, okay, they're not doing all of them. Which ones are the more prominent steps that are getting taken? And here we can see this across the years that the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey has been running in this form. We can see it's a pretty similar picture. So things like malware protection, network security, managing privileges, all prominent all the way over the time. One that is notably less prominent is user education and awareness. And we can see that in the most recent year, it's become even less prominent than all of the others. It's by far the one that's receiving the least attention. Now, you might notice that over the time, there are some that have, including education awareness, some that have changed quite dramatically. So let's just explain them. So secure configuration looked all fine and dandy up until this year, when to qualify as having taken that step, it included needing to have applied updates within the last 14 days, or within the 14 days that the update has become available. And then you can see it significantly falls in terms of organisations complying. If we look at user education awareness, why did that fall? Well, the most recent definition in the survey means not only having a policy about security that's promoted to users, but also conducting staff training to support that. If you ask that question, it falls in terms of the proportion doing it. The one that seems to have improved over time is incident management, and that's because the description was relaxed. So going from having a formal incident management plan to just anything that related to having an incident management process. So far more respondents felt they were compliant. But the one we're going to focus on is this middle one around education and awareness. So going back to the breaches that have occurred and the attacks that have been experienced, what ones would have been perhaps helped by having greater levels of user awareness and education? Well, a variety of them are things that have people involved potentially in the incidents. The most prominent one, phishing, of course, is something that is encountered by our users, our staff, but viruses, ransomware, and unauthorized access, they might all be things where if staff were more aware, they'd be better positioned not to help the ransomware and the malware, and not to make decisions that actually are unauthorized in terms of their permissions. So things where awareness could help. And actually, just to evidence that point, what do the respondent organisations say they do after a breach? Well, the most prominent areas of response we can see is around additional staff communication and training, which suggests that if that had perhaps been done before, then maybe the breach might not have occurred, and also creating or changing policies and procedures. So again, something that relates to communicating with the staff and telling them what's expected. So if these things were done perhaps more proactively, we might be in a better position. And of course, this actually proves to be a situation that hasn't changed over the years. Going back to 1998 and through onwards from there, roughly about a third of organisations in any survey you care to pick say they do something about security education, training and awareness. And that was also the case in the cybersecurity breaches survey up till this year, when it became even less, with 9%. Now, even where people say they're doing training, it's not necessarily being done in what we might consider to be a very effective way. So you might relate to what I'm describing here, where training is essentially getting our staff to watch a 10 to 15-minute video, maybe answer some questions, maybe do a simple task, and then they're considered to be security aware, and that ticks a box for us. But how far does that really take us? Well, probably not very far, because, okay, we've made people more aware, but are they better positioned to actually deal with situations if they were to encounter them in practice? So, okay, they're more informed about security, but are they more capable? And, well, perhaps not, would be my suggestion. And how are we approaching security training? I've got two fish here to illustrate how we maybe are doing it and how we could do it or should do it. So we have what seems to be the standard approach, the goldfish approach, where basically we're assuming that people are just going to forget what we've told them and keep telling them the same thing again and again by annually, for example, doing a security training course, run through the same thing, and then you're trained and refreshed each time. What would be more useful would be our Babelfish approach. And if you're not familiar with the Babelfish, it's from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it translates languages into something you will understand. So here, the idea would be presenting our cybersecurity issues in a manner that staff can relate to, so they understand what their role is and what they're supposed to do. So just getting into that a little bit. Set of questions that we ideally want to address for people. So why? Why does it matter? Why should I care as a member of staff about it? Whose concern is it? Is it mine, or is somebody else actually doing it for me? Do I have to know something, or do I have to actually do something about it? And if I'm supposed to do something, what am I supposed to do? And how am I supposed to do it? And when and where does it apply? Does it apply on all systems for all data, or is it in more specific circumstances? So getting people to the level where they understand the answers to these questions is implicitly going to make them more aware of what their responsibilities are. Now, I mentioned previously that the NCSC has changed its 10 steps to cybersecurity. It still has 10 steps, but they're slightly different. And the one that relates to education awareness is now called engagement and training. I've highlighted it there. I won't go into any of the others, but I'll just give a bit more focus on what that one actually means now, what they expect from it. So this step has a series of sub-steps within it. So the key things are encouraging senior leaders to lead by example. You need to set that tone at the top of the organisation. You need to build an effective dialogue with staff. So what does that mean? Well, for example, understanding what their role and their perspective on cybersecurity is, and getting them to appreciate it from that context, and being supportive, not blaming people for making errors, actually helping them to overcome them. It says consider running security awareness campaigns. I mean, I hope we would do more than consider it, we'd actually do it. And in doing so, think about the messaging. So make it relevant to the organization, make it present things in a positive way, and focus it on how staff can actually help, how they can play their part and answer those previous questions, and tailoring it to suit the needs of your organization. So presenting it in small, frequent chunks rather than this annual one-off thing where we just tick a box, emphasizing the benefits to the organization and to the staff as individuals if possible, and avoid just repeating the same thing in exactly the same way. You want to reinforce the message, but you want to make it fresh as much as you can each time. So, I mean, in terms of our security training program. I'm going to say it's as simple as ABC, or it could be. And what's the ABC mean? Well, it's getting from the level of awareness through to affecting behavior, through to creating a culture. And I presented it here as a triangle pyramid thing, because at the bottom level, it's perhaps quite easy, but it's a steep climb to get to the top, and it takes more effort to get to that level of an organizational culture. Now, I talk about SETA here, security education, training and awareness. So effective activities, they're going to raise awareness, but actually affecting behavior and influencing culture, that takes more time, more effort, more emphasis on the issue. And yeah, as I say, getting from one level to the next is not an easy walk. It's a hard climb, potentially, depending on your starting point. But as you look at this, perhaps consider your organization and how far do you think you are actually in your own climb up this pyramid. Now, in terms of how we can tailor things, well, again, no easy answer, but illustrating what we could think about here is moving from what we often seem to have, which is a one-size-fits-all training education plan, if we have anything at all in that context, through to something that is more tailored, more personalized for the staff members concerned. So thinking about what their role is, what their prior knowledge might be, their learning style, their perception of security, and trying to work out how we can present the key messages in a way that matches to that, so it's more digestible for them. And taking things even further, having something within our organization, within departments, where we have peer-based learning, so people can learn from each other, and perhaps the notion of security advocates or champions who can help to guide, reinforce, support, whatever the right word is for this, at the more localized levels. So it's not just something that's done once and forgotten about, and it's one version is expected to suit everybody. Now, it's all very well for me to say this, and I'm saying here quite explicitly, there are no magic wands. It's far easier said than done, and it takes effort to actually do this. You need the raw materials to work from, and you then need to coordinate and actually set the time free for delivering this and getting people to participate. It won't happen by itself. And equally, rather disappointingly, it also won't guarantee success. But doing something increases the chances far more significantly than doing nothing at all, and just leaving ourselves where we've been for the last 20, 30 years, where we're experiencing the issues and we're pointing towards staff as being the weakest link, the cause, and we're not doing the bit that actually would support them in doing better. Where can we get guidance? Well, again, I mentioned NCSC before. I'll name check them again. They've got some top tips for staff in an e-learning package here, and it covers a variety of useful baseline areas for staff. And this can actually be taken and adapted within your own training provision. So to conclude then, well, it's not going to be easy to prevent cybersecurity breaches. We know that already. It's not to dismiss the technology. We need all of the bits we've invested in, but we need to do better on the security education, training and awareness aspect, because without that being done, we will continue to experience the staff-related breaches that we've had for so long. And okay, we can carry on blaming them, saying it's their fault, they're the weakest link, but if we've not supported them, it's not surprising they're going to be in that position. We can't rely on people to develop their own awareness. They're not coming to the organization with that already prepared. They're not coming yet out of school, etc., and into the workforce in that position. So we need to do something to support them. Hopefully some of this will change over time, but we can't rely on it yet. There are steps that we can take, but it's not an instant change to go from a loose culture to something where security is more embedded and understood. But still, coordinating, promoting, supporting the baseline principles is a very good starting point to work from. Okay, so contact details there, and thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you to you, Stephen, for a perfect start to the day and for setting the scene so well. It's so interesting, isn't it, to understand the reasons why we look at people as the weakest link, with digital education or lack of being a key factor behind this perception. So thank you very much for sharing. Let's take our first break now, which is your first chance to engage with the speed networking functionality. I'll see you back here at 10:40. Lovely.